welcome to Soundings with SASH. How are you guys doing this evening? I'm really excited. I have two guests with me this evening, David Reed and Gretchen Robinson, and I'm very excited to have them on tonight. And we're just going to speak about different things in unity and love and how to gain your peace and all of those lovely things. So let me introduce them right now. Hi, David.
Hello,
and hi,
Sandy.
Gretchen.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming on Soundings with Sash. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
so I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves. I tried to put your websites up there and it didn't work for me, and I apologize. But I put your details of how to reach you and your websites on our chat. So, David, tell us something about you and where are you? Exactly.
Yes. First of all, thank you so much, Sandy. I've been really looking forward to coming on your show. And yes, I'm David Michael Reed, or D-Mike. And you can find me at www.gameofunity.com, or at all the social channels, pretty much at D-Mike Reed. And yes, I'm currently in the jungles of Mexico, right outside of Tulum.
Wow. Where exactly is Tulum?
Yep, so it's about a couple of hours south of Cancun. That's where we fly into whenever we're coming here. I hadn't actually heard of it until last year, whenever I had making plans to come here to support this project that I'm working on currently. But it's a touristy spot. I hear that it doubles about every year, so it's really growing.
So what are you doing there? I mean, what's going on there? Just curious.
Yeah, sure. It's actually a really exciting opportunity that was that I ran into after meeting somebody in the middle of brand. It's a really exciting project where we're just getting started. We're actually launching this week, so this is one of the busiest weeks that we've had since we've started. And yeah, I've been here since about the middle of November, and I've got an opportunity to be basically the life coach for the entire group. As you can imagine, stuff comes up whenever we're out here in the middle of the jungle, and we've got people here from all over the world, and a bunch of performist artists, tantra teachers, some of the most brilliant like sexual healing practitioners on the globe. And I'm really excited that they trusted me with this position.
Wow, that's really neat. You kind of broke up there, so we kind of didn't hear the beginning part of what you were kind of doing there, but that's okay. We can expound later if you want to. And Gretchen, thank you for joining us. And where are you joining us from?
So I'm in Kansas City in the middle of this Arctic blast that we're having. Jealous that I'm not in the jungle, the warm jungle.
And tell me a little bit about your background and what you're working on. Any new projects or anything?
Gosh, I'm always working on something. So I've been a yoga teacher and a spiritual teacher for about 20 years. And have had the good fortune to study with masters from many different modalities, from shamans to psychic surgeons, yoga masters, you name it. And I just draw on all those modalities for everything I do, whether it's yoga. I'm also an energy healer. So besides teaching yoga, I also have a program where we train educators in yoga and mindfulness to teach the kids, to work with the kids in the schools so that it can become a part of their everyday culture and classroom, and teach the kids how to respond versus react to situations in life, in their life, and in the world around them.
Wow, that's great. We probably needed that for a long time, right? Kids do what kind of practice would that be? Is it kind of like teaching them how to do meditation, or just a mindset shift, or, you know,
It's a little bit of everything. They
Mhm.
do an actual yoga practice. There's a lot of emphasis on breathing and breath work and using that as a way to calm them down. You know, even if they're nervous before a test, we teach them how to use their breath to calm themselves down.
Oh,
When they're
wow.
feeling anxious, angry, you know, any of those feelings, they can use the breath, and they're trained in this and how to use it with the kids. And then there's also, I call them life lessons. There's a year-long curriculum that goes, or curriculum is not quite the right word, but basically a curriculum that goes along with it. And it really starts with having the kids look at themselves, and then as the year progresses, then turning that outward.
Oh, wow. That's really neat. And how are they doing that with virtually? Have you been doing it virtually since they've been doing class at home, or?
So no,
Oh,
we trained, we've trained a number of teachers in the Kansas City area. So some of them are continuing doing it with their students online. The teachers have been overwhelmed, I will say, with trying to figure this
yeah.
year out, but also using the yoga themselves to help them deal with this year. So, but I love going into the schools myself and working with the kids, but have not been able to, obviously, this year. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into the schools. But we don't need to be in the schools, really. I mean, it's the teachers are the ones doing it with their own classes, so that it can sustain itself and be part of the everyday language, thought patterns, and actions within their classrooms and within the school.
Yes. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't start yoga until I was 49. So
It's never too late.
I never knew how awesome it was. I never understood. I just never understand it, and probably because I was kind of in a different box and thought, you know, I'm not sure about that. And when I finally opened my mind up to being open to that and took my first class, and I took one called Flow, I was just like, wow, that was amazing. And then I couldn't not go back every week.
It's an energy healing modality is what
Yeah.
it is, because when you do yoga, you're recreating the sacred geometric shapes that everything in creation is created from. Each posture is a sacred geometric shape. And then when you link it with the breath, I always say that's the telephone line back to source. And that's the most high, powerful energy of divine love. So when you start breathing and connecting back to source in these geometric shapes, you start to vibrate again with, or more strongly with source. And it kind of brings you back to the core of who you are, back to your homeostasis.
Wow.
So it's very powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
connecting to source is always powerful, right? No matter
Yes.
how you do it.
Yes. When I would leave, I mean, I it was just like leaving all your cares at the door, and just like leaving it all out there, you know.
Yeah.
Child pose was always like, oh, when she said child pose, now you're like, ah, you know, it was so great. So I mean, I'm really grateful, you know, for learning that. And that's why I was wondering if you had a studio now, because I was like, well, you know, I need a new one.
I have an online studio right now.
Okay, well, yes, I'll check you out. I definitely want to. I do have people that come in and say hi, so I'm going to say hi to my regulars here. Hi, Larry. Hi, Jason. Thanks for joining us. So, how do you two know each other?
Yeah.
Well, I had been watching David on Facebook and looking at his posts, and I just loved what he was saying and the energy that he was putting out there, and I just felt a real connection to him and to what he was saying, and I love like these young guys who are really speaking. I think is just so important. And especially as a young Black man, I think that is really, really important. And so I just reached out to him and asked if he to meet, and just went from there.
Oh, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Well,
Yeah, and
that's
then
how I
we
met
met up
David
for
as well.
lunch and kept going.
Well, I saw him also on Facebook, and I saw his energy leap off the page as well, and that's how we connected as well. As I was like, somebody you should know, and I'm like, oh, I want to know you. So yeah, so tell
I
us
appreciate
about.
that. I appreciate
Do you
that.
have work together that you guys do, or are you just friends? You know.
No, go ahead, David.
Yeah. Yeah. So once Gretchen reached out to me, and we went out to eat, and it was an immediate connection, and we just started talking about all the different things that we had in common. And one of the things that she was telling me about was her program where she was going into schools, and she was teaching, yoga and mindfulness and all of these kinds of things. And it just really resonated with a book that I was reading at the time, or I had just finished reading. And so I had gotten an idea about basically going into businesses and doing the same thing, because I was just thinking that this is the place where it's needed. This is the place where the money is, and we feel like we're entering this new paradigm, and we can help usher in that by infusing consciousness and mindfulness into the business places. And in fact, in the book that we've now both read, it was speaking about the CEO worked with big companies like the United Nations, and with the Obama administration, and with West Point, and all of these places, and as well as like General Electric and Levi and some of these big brands. And they're just saying that if these companies, these big Fortune 50 companies, don't have some kind of a mindfulness program, if they're not doing yoga, if they're not teaching consciousness, then they're not going to exist here in a few years. And we really just felt like that is where we're heading as a universe, as a world, and as a universe, and as people. That like the new millennials and whatever the next generation is that's coming in right now, they're just not having it, this old paradigm.
No,
we really
if you're
feel
not
like
for the people, and if you're just bypassing that and just concentrating on the bottom line.
Right.
And we really feel like there's been such a loss of, as we kept calling it, the human element, and connecting with each other, and how that translates from the top all the way to the bottom, all the way through a business. So we're taking this beyond just doing yoga and mindfulness, but how do you bring that consciousness into every aspect of your business? Is your business even matching what you believe it to be, So,
well, what I think, I was in corporate world, so I was a manager in corporate world, and I saw the shift come when we all started doing leadership development programs, and that kind of started bringing that into center, and then wellness programs. So we kind of shifted from who moved my cheese and Six Sigma kind of things, and that was getting us more relational with one another and more team minded and kind of connected, because before we would just clock in and clock out, talk to each other because we had to, have a business meeting because we had to. But those types of programs started to evolve. And so that's even better. I would have loved to have gone into a wellness program that had, yoga in it or something else. I mean, I would teach my team how to Irish dance. So just for fun, for fun, different, team building kind of things. And I feel like, since we're mind, body, soul, I mean, those three things together will definitely make a corporation more successful, right? I mean, if we bring the three together somehow, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea.
That was something that like in our research. Yeah, I think like that was something that we realized, that in our research, that this whole idea about only focusing on the stockholders, which is what a lot of companies do now, is just like, how can we improve our stock price? And that's actually sort of a more recent thing than a lot of people really actually realize. And so what we're finding is that whenever we do focus on the human element and the human connection, that not only will it create a better work environment and a place that you're going to find purpose and want to come to and work with people to create something, but it's also going to help your bottom line. So if you are trying to make money, which a lot of times we think that that's the main focus, is to make money, but really the money is just sort of like a result of the energy that you're putting into it. And that's what we focus on, because the people are the ones that drive the business. And whenever you take care of the people and look at it from that approach, then every aspect of your business is going to improve.
That's right. That's right. Totally agree. We again, coming from corporate, we had the big cubicles that closed us all off. So we did our work in this box, that was higher than us, and we couldn't even see our coworkers. And finally they realized that was not very good, that actually did not help with productivity, and it didn't help with quality, because it didn't help you to ask a question, get out of your seat, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I was in true corporate land, and they got rid of all the high cubicles and brought in the half ones so that you could see each other and actually be relational. That's just how we're made. That's how we're supposed to be. Right. So when you cut off those things, that is when your businesses suffer. So, it's really neat to see them gonna try to bring in that third piece of it. So, wow, that's neat. So, did you start rolling some of that out, or are you currently working on that project?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
Did we lose him?
I don't know.
Yeah, we're developing it, and one thing that we're focused on is that we understand how big of an impact these businesses have on not just the people that are working there, but the people around it as well. And so we're looking at not just the stockholders, but all of the stakeholders, everybody that the business touches. And that's really part of what we think is the power of all of this, is that it has the money is what everybody is focused on, and it's what has, unfortunately, it's where a lot of the power is. And so by going into these companies and in these businesses, not only can we affect the people that are working there, but then also all of the people that live in the areas around the business, and all of the people and all of the supply chains, and everybody that's affected by the flow of the money and where it all goes. And so we think that this can really start there and then balloon out into the entire world. And that's how we can make a significant change in the world and how we do things.
Wow. That's nice. That's great. Well, D Mike, since I'll call you D Mike now, since it's on your little parentheses. Tell me a little bit about your story, where you come from, because I am very fascinated by your story as well, on how you got here. How did you get from this location to that location? Now you're down in Mexico. How nice. So how'd you get there?
Sure. So I've got family out in California, and so I found myself out there, and I was on the streets of Compton, just outside of Los Angeles. And there's a movie about it. It's very popular for some very devious reasons, I would say, but it's kind of like a pressure cooker. It also it's just a couple of blocks, but it's produced a bunch of millionaires and billionaires and a lot of famous and really successful people as well. And I was living there whenever I had sort of a spiritual awakening or whatever, and it really caused this cognitive dissonance there, because here I am thinking about all of this, consciousness and love and light that I was letting in. I always felt like I was being tapped on the shoulder by something bigger, but whenever I found myself in such a kind of a desolate position there, then it was finally time to let that in and think that, hey, okay, maybe there is something more than what the media and news and even the people around me that think and want the best for me are telling me. And so I started letting in these ideas of consciousness and mindfulness and everything come in. And, I really feel like whenever you reach out to the universe, then the universe reaches back to you. And so it led me to a spiritual teacher that I'd found that was in Kansas. And I bought a plane ticket and I came, not knowing what I was doing. And one thing led to another. But I think the thing that really stuck with me is that I was able to see and experience consciousness from two completely different sides of the spectrum. I mean, whenever I was in Compton, that was spirituality. I mean, I feel like spirituality is really what kind of pervades and goes through everything. But whenever you see it from that side, and you see it from this desolation, this huge homeless population, and people not having work, so they have to create for themselves. But they do, and I just thought of it differently. I thought, like, these are entrepreneurs, you know. And but then I moved very quickly into a mansion in Kansas, in Overland Park, Kansas, and so I'm seeing spirituality from this side, and I'm just thinking, wow, how great is it that people can come together? Because I'm still in communication with both of these people from these vastly different backgrounds. And whenever I was able to communicate with people like that, then you see what happens whenever they come together, and somebody from this background can experience something completely outside of what they had thought or even know to think about. And then whenever you put those two things together, it just creates these profound solutions. And I believe that's whenever it got into me, this idea about unity, because I would see, as vastly different as these cultures were, I would still see those common elements, and it's just like, wow, we all want the same thing. We're all moving towards the same thing. We might be going about it in completely different ways, but how awesome is that? Because it's like we all have these different pieces of the puzzle. And so I just got in my head, like, wow, if we could just bring together every culture and every person, and we're all just understanding about our mutual beneficial shared goals, while really valuing our very important differences and not fighting over these differences, but really valuing them and learning from one another and sharing in these goals, then we can create a whole new world, and we can do things a vastly different way. And it was just so important to me that I realized that it's only these tiny shifts that we have to make. It's not that we have to wait hundreds of years and do all of these crazy things and wait for things to happen. It's like we can just make these tiny shifts, and then we can grow together in a much more valued and shared and creative and constructive way.
Wow, that's great. And Gretchen, what about you? What is your background, and when you're awakening, and how did you get there, and what would you suggest to somebody who's searching for that?
Well, it's interesting because I was very much in the business world as well. And I went to a yoga class because I thought it was important to stretch. I just didn't know what was going to get stretched. Like my whole mind got blown. And I think even things that my whole belief system got turned upside down and inside out. And from the very beginning of my yoga practice, I started immediately just having visions and things come to me, and these really incredible experiences, but I never would have believed them had I not experienced them. In fact, I would have probably made fun of them until I had these experiences. So I always say it was the universe's way of like kind of taking a baseball bat to my head going, really, you don't believe it? Try this. And so it really it just shook me out. It shook me to my core and turned me inside out and upside down, and then started to rebuild me, I say. And it doesn't happen overnight, although at times it does, or it can. And but it has just been a continual process over these 20 years. I'm always a student, if you will, always learning and always experiencing. So it really, and I think that's what's so important. We have to change ourselves. We don't need to change the world. The world will change as we change. It's just the basic laws of energy. Once whatever energy we put out goes out through the universe, out through infinity. And it will change us. It will change the world around us. So we don't even need to worry about the world. We need to worry about ourselves and change ourselves. But once we start to move into that place of more love, living from a place of love, we will naturally start helping people more and doing things, to benefit the world. It's just a natural occurrence.
Yeah.
When I'm in that state.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you love yourself, then you can start loving others. You can't give out of that empty cup, right? So you have to love yourself to be able to give that love and to have a servant's heart, or to help others. They'll see that because they people, they might not know what's up with you, but they know if you're genuine or not. They really do, innately. And if you're doing it out of obligation or guilt or shame or all those things, that is very apparent to people when you're doing that, and then they're like, well, what's going on with you? But if you're doing it out of that love from yourself outwards, they know. And then they usually will ask, okay, what's going on there? How can I get some of that? So, right. So, I mean, right. I mean,
yes.
I've had, people go, oh, the light, where do you get that? And it's like, well, it doesn't, you have to work on it in here in yourself.
The thing is that we all are that light.
Yes.
What we come from. We come when in the Bible where it says, and God spoke, from my viewpoint, that is energy that expanded out, and those particles went out, and creation as we know it came from those particles. Well, we're part of that creation. We contain those particles of energy. We are that light. We are that love. It is what we naturally are. Our natural state is bliss and happiness and joy and love. But it is all the experience and layers that we have piled upon ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Stop us from maybe seeing that, or addictions and lies and insecurities. We step into those, and so we step basically out of our light, and we're looking at things through a different filter, instead of looking at things through the light and seeing the light in everybody and everything else.
Yeah. So we do have a question over here. So how do they tackle the changes when you may have a partner, family, and friends who aren't willing to change as well? Oh, that's a good question. All right. Either one of you want to tackle that?
I have a story around that, actually.
Okay.
Because I got divorced many years ago. And as I was going through that, I was talking to my philosophy teacher, and I said to him, what do you do if you feel like you neutralize with this person, but they have not with you? And he said, you give them more of what they need.
Okay. You cut out,
I was like,
cut out for me, but in the beginning of that, you did cut out for a second. So say that again, if you wouldn't mind.
So when I asked my philosophy teacher, what do you do if you feel like you've neutralized your karma with somebody? In other words, you've learned your lessons that you needed to learn with them, but they have not with you. What do you do? And he said, you give them more of what they need. And then I'm wondering what this is and thinking, I don't want to give them anything. And then he said, you give them more love. And I was like, especially not that. I'm not giving them more love. And which means really I had not neutralized my karma with them if I could not see him in love. But it's not that love, like that kind of human love. It is that divine love. And I am a big believer, that relationships, it's okay for them to come to an end. They had a purpose. And it doesn't mean they need to come to an end or you need to move on. But there's also, in my opinion, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It served its purpose.
Right. I totally agree with you. When there was forgiveness laid over those relationships, then closure is easier. Sometimes you don't have closure, but you can have closure with yourself and that relationship, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And the forgiveness needs to go both ways, forgiving them and forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
And then I have a really good technique
really
too.
cool.
So,
Okay.
because forgiveness does not mean you condone anything that happened. It just means you take your power back. And if somebody hurts you once, shame on them. If somebody hurts you twice, shame on you. Well, how do they hurt you twice? Because they've already done the act. It's done. They may not even think about it again, but we replay it over and over in our minds, right? So that becomes us doing it to ourselves. So the first thing we need to do is get it out of us. So you write a letter, whether it's to yourself or to another person, and you say everything you want to say that you're already saying in your mind. You know, it does not need to be a nice letter because you're not going to give it to anybody, but you need to get it out. So whatever you're saying already, write it down, get it out of you. Don't go back and reread it because then you may reattach to it.
Right.
Just write. And when you've said everything you feel like you need to say, you light it on fire and you burn it. And the burning is the releasing of it.
That's
So
great.
it's a very, very, very simple, easy technique. Now, very emotional too, but it's so freeing, so liberating. And really, it is just you stopping yourself from doing it to you and taking your power back. Because as we replay this over and over in our head, we're continually giving our power away to that person.
Yeah.
So it's not about saying what you did was not right or wrong. It's not even putting any judgment to it. It's just releasing it from ourselves.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Yes, I love that practice. That's a great symbolic practice to do. Anything that you, David? Am I losing you?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you have a similar type of practice?
I feel like that is one of the. I'm here. I feel like yeah, I feel like that's probably one of the biggest things that comes up for me whenever in my coaching practices, people are saying, you know, I'm on this path and how can I bring this person with me or how can I change that person? And I think it really comes back to one of the things that we talked about earlier is that there's a lot of self-love that has to be actualized and thought about here. And whenever you have that confidence in yourself and that love in yourself and you know where you're going, and you don't let anything deter you or anyone deter you or slow you or hold you back. And what that does is it plants a seed. And then if you can just shine so brightly, you continue on your path and you shine so brightly, then people are going to notice that. And the people around you are going to see and they're going to say, I want that. How did you get that? Like, I want that too. And then whenever they start seeing what you did, and then they're going to want to do the same things. They're going to want to do a lot of the same things or not. And you're going to have, but you know where you're going still, and you're able to create these relationships and these things that you need in other situations, people are, or really just in with yourself. And then you reflect that out and then you bring you bring whatever is a match to you. But so many times what's happened is that I've had to either leave a relationship or a person, place, or thing, and then go and continue to do what I was doing and continue to shine my light. And then sometimes I haven't heard from that person again, or then even sometimes if it's even years later. I mean, that's happened several times. Years later, somebody will come back to me and be like, "Man, you were talking about some crazy stuff back all those years ago, but now I'm interested. Now I want to know what you're doing." And I'm like, "Okay, great, you're here now," and it's all in perfect timing. And then and it was perfect timing because they're going through their process. And that's one thing that I always want to stress to people whenever I'm working with them is that don't rob people of their process. You know, if you're going through something and you find this great realization and this revelation and you're able to work through this great thing, find this great stuff, but you had to go through that process and now it's their time to go through that process. And that is the benefit, like that the journey is the benefit. And if you're able to just bypass all of that, then you're missing the entire point. So you have to have that level of grace to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go do this thing. I understand that you're right here. And I'm so happy for you to get to go through your process later on, whenever that happens for you. And then you can meet me there.
I think one thing that David kind of said at the beginning of all of that, it's so important not to hold yourself back because somebody else is not there with you. That won't work. the relationship won't work. It's just not going to work. So don't hold yourself back. And nobody is better than or less than. It's just where we are on our individual journeys. And maybe you've already had those experiences. You've already learned those lessons. Maybe some of those are still yet to come for you. So there's no better than or less than. It's just everybody's on an individual soul journey. And you can try
and that's
to
what
help.
and that's what I say. I said you don't have to understand it, and I don't have to understand where you're at. You don't have to understand where I'm at, and I don't have to understand, but if you're trying to shed some wisdom on, well, but everybody's journey is so different, and you do have to come to that revelation. Those revelations have to come on your own. You can't make somebody get there. They have to want to figure it out or truth seek. Some people don't, that's amazing to me that some people don't want to figure that out on their own. And I have to tell people a lot of the times, you can't be the safety net for that person. That person has to hit bottom to bounce back up. They cannot learn what they need to learn. If you're netting them, they'll never reach where that revelation, they'll never reach where they need to be because you're protecting their fall, and that's hard. I know. I mean, I've done tough love, and tough love is hard, and you want to net people, but if you love them, you won't net them.
Exactly.
That's the difference,
Because you're robbing and stealing from them if you don't. You're robbing and stealing from them the opportunity for their soul growth. So I think when we sometimes think in that term, because we don't want to rob and steal from anybody, right?
No.
So think about that. And sometimes it makes it easier to allow them to have that journey. Because we see people in pain, we see it's hard, and you want to help. You want to take the pain away from them, but you're not helping them.
By nature, we do. Yeah. But if you're doing it unhealthily in those codependent areas, that's never good. I know that we do have I always like to bring our audience in to see what they have to say. But we're all on journeys. It's up to them if they want to come along. Yep. Exactly. That's exactly what we were talking about. And he's telling you guys great words. So yes, I mean, because you can't make someone do something, and it's not your job to make someone do something. It's not up to you, except for when you're a parent. I mean, I know as a parent, I had to see the transition of letting my kids become who they were, and that was difficult. Because, I wanted to put something on them, right? So I wanted to parent them. And unfortunately, in relationships, I find that if you're not healthy in your boundaries of being not parent-child, don't become that parent-child, because then you're not really partners, you're parent-child, and you try to make them be who you want them to be. And that's hard.
Isn't that really us saying we know? When we're like that, it's like we're saying we know more than God. We know what's better for you than. When I say God, for me, it's not a religious connotation, but like a source, creator. I don't care what you label it.
I call him God.
It's really kind of arrogant on our part if we stop and think about it, to think that we know what's better for this person, or we want to change them.
I feel like there's also there's a level of humility. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Being a parent brings that level of humility, doesn't it?
And also, I feel like you can, there's a really big opportunity here, Yeah. Exactly.
It's funny that we're talking go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that there's a really big opportunity here as well. And if you can approach the situation with humility, then we can find out that maybe in this one area, I might be excelling past this person. But then if you really look into it, then there's some other areas where they might be leaps and bounds ahead of you, and you can learn from them and follow them in that. And I mean, even in what we're talking about in the parent-child relationship, I mean, I feel like there's a lot. I don't have kids myself, but I know that there's a lot that we can learn from kids. I mean, I learn from that all the time. I always say that, like, you know, they're less separated from God, whatever you want to say. You know, they were at source more recently than we were. So a lot of times I'll, you know, if I'm around kids or around babies, you know, it's like, tell me what God's like. I forgot, you know, you've been there more recently. But yeah, I just think that we all are all on our different paths. And it's like, yes, I might be really focused on authenticity, and I'm just really excelling in that area. But then in compassion, the other person who's learning from me in authenticity, I can take a lot of pages from their book and become so much more compassionate because they excel in that area. And I think that whenever we skip over that and we think, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and, you know, it's the humility element. You know, it's like, oh, I'm so far above you, you're going to catch up to me soon. You know, rather than be like that, it's like, well, what can we learn from each other? If they are looking at me like that, then how can I look at them like that? And that was just so evident to me, especially in my journey in Compton. Like, a lot of times we look at these areas and like, oh, like, you know, that's low vibe or something like that. Like, look at all the chaos and everything that's going on over there. But there's so much to learn. Like I was saying, it's all spirituality. And I mean, I was talking to homeless people that were in professions that we would think that are less than. And I learned so much from them just by sitting and listening to them about that unity and that vibe of bringing everybody together. And we all have a piece of the puzzle. So rather than sitting up on our high horse and waiting for everybody to catch up to us, like, let's go down in there where we really are and look out and see the other ways that we can improve and learn from everyone around us.
Oh yeah.
Well, when we start thinking we're above somebody else, then there's a good knock on the door that we still have a lot of work to do, because we're not there yet if we're thinking that, you know.
Yeah, I get every once in a while I get a smack. I call it the smack down, you know, when God's like, okay, you know, that nice of you to think that way, you know, because it's kind of in our nature sometimes to go in that direction. So that's why you have to retrain your nature and try to, you know, get that energy more, you know, spirit filled. To not just react to everything, to not just speak about everything. I think in my path, my journey, you know, I did a lot of observing at one time, but then I did a lot of talking at another time, you know, where I thought I knew everything. So I, you know, I definitely had a prideful, you know, spirit for a little while, and I had to get that smack down. You know, I finally did, and it was great. You know, it was very humbling. It's kind of funny. You look back and you're going, oh, that was the turning point. You know, it was like a turning point. It was my crossroads. It's something that I had to go through. Like we were talking about, you have to go through these things to get those revelations. You know, you have to be humble. You do have to admit it. You know, nobody is perfect around here, and you know, but some of us, like you were saying, David, about, you know, some of us excel at some things but are weaker at others. You know, stop and listen to people. You know, stop talking to talk or not listening, because they do have something to share. They do have a gift to give you, actually, that you don't even know. You know, if we just take a minute, you know, to stop. So, so tell me about your work now and how we can, you know, tell them how to contact either one of you for coaching. And David, how long are you gone for? Are you coming back? Where are you staying? Are you going to come back to Kansas or no? Or where you're going to end up? And
that rendered him speechless.
I think he's frozen.
Oh, yeah, I'm back now. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were kind of like
Okay.
frozen there for
Yeah.
a minute.
Okay. Yes. So yes, you were just asking me about where I am and if I'm coming back, and that's a great question. The company that I'm working with right now, we work in groups, so we're going in 2 month slots. So
Oh,
right now,
that,
these 2 months, Mexico, and we're trying to figure out where the next one's going to be. It might be here, it might be in another country. Of course, it's going to be a lot of COVID dependingness, and see who's going to welcome us, and where we're going to be able to go and be safe and be able to do our work. We're thinking about maybe coming back to the States, but right now I'm a citizen of the world. I'm planning on
no, nice.
be traveling back and forth between probably DC and Kansas City, and maybe here in Mexico, maybe Portugal, maybe Arizona, where we've got a lot of things up in the air right now. So I'll be around. You can always I do all my work via online anyway, so you can get me at gameofunity.com.
Great.
And yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll probably be in Tulum for at least another couple of months, but I'll be making some trips back to the States, and if I'm able to, and I'll be able to do. That's kind of why I wanted to create my life. I'm all about freedom and fun and
Yeah,
authenticity, and so I wanted to be able to create a life where I can do it from wherever. So that's where I'm going to be
that's
doing it
awesome. That's awesome. Yes, and lucky you, not in cold Kansas City right now. And what about you,
from.
Gretchen? What
Yes.
is your next steps? I mean, what's your next journey?
Well, I'm staying in Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
And I have my online yoga studio, and hopefully when we get through COVID, we'll be moving back into a physical space again. Be continuing with my school program, and
Does that need
starting.
any, I mean, do you need help with that, or so do you need supporters with that, or?
Supporters are great.
Okay.
The Kansas City Chiefs, bless their hearts, have been a wonderful supporter of our program, and they donate money to us every year.
Okay.
Our goal is to never have a school teacher have to pay for the training, or at least to only pay a part of it. Um, I just have such a soft spot in my heart for school teachers,
Oh,
and
me too. Yeah.
I think they're the most underpaid and undervalued just about work that they do in this country. So we need we need funding for them desperately always. So the
Okay.
more funding we get, the more teachers we can train, and the more
Okay.
we can spread this beautiful message and way of life. And for these kids, most of our work right now is in the inner city, and we always say we're not going in to try to change the circumstances of their lives. Again, I'm a big believer in these lessons that they have chosen, I feel like, for their lives. And we're not trying to change the circumstances of their lives, but giving them tools to be able to deal with them, to respond more positively, if you will, make it
Right.
maybe easier on them as they go through this journey, but to allow them to still have their journey.
Oh, wow. That's neat.
All kids to have their journey.
I mean, just speaking this out, I work in the kind of around a public sector kind of, I work with firefighters and fire investigators. And I'm
Yeah,
wondering, would a program like that be great for them too? I mean, really? I
absolutely.
mean, can you imagine? That would be great, like in the firehouses and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it.
Listen, you got me thinking. I'm one of those people that wire yourself like, oh, that could help, the firefighters and the police officers, which I'm sure that some of them do reach out and do that on their
Oh,
own,
of course.
but
Yeah.
wouldn't that be great, to teach to the public sector like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
anywhere that we can spread yoga, it's not about tying yourself in knots, or,
yeah,
how
right.
you can physically do. It's not even about that, but it's really for all of us. You know, the whole world has been moving from the solar plexus, from this power center. We're reacting. When I say the solar plexus in yoga, that's one of our energy chakras, energy centers. And that represents personal power. And it represents being too controlling or feeling out of control or insecure, lacking self-worth. And so even control everything, isn't that really coming from a place of lacking self-worth or feeling insecure? And so the whole world has been just like reacting from that space.
Yeah.
Instead of the heart, get people to move. This is what we're doing with the yoga, moving from that space to the heart center and bringing more balance from all areas, and starting to, when we move to the heart, when we start speaking from the heart, we start thinking from the heart, we start acting from the heart.
Yes.
And that's what I feel like the world really needs.
Yes. Totally agree.
That's why we want to give that to anybody and everybody.
Exactly. Exactly. And that, yes. Yes, most definitely. And I being somebody, and that's why I want to keep bringing up that I was very closed-minded about yoga and about meditation and all of that. You know, I was because I was stuck in a certain box. And now that I've open-minded outside of that box and realized everything is energy, everything is God, everything is love. So that is what, that is kind of the message. It's like, I want everyone to feel that peace. I want everybody to feel that calm. After I'm so thankful for it, because then COVID hit last year, right? So then I had to shift and go, okay, I'm not freaking out. Why am I not? And it's because I found that groundedness and that peace of the energy. So, I just implore everybody to try to reach out for that, because I saw so many people just kind of freaking out in chaos. And it's kind of like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be that way. You can't, you decide, you get to decide. You're the one in control of that decision. You're the one in control of how, you've always been in control of that. You just don't know. A lot of those movies that say, you have the power. You do have the power. You do have the power to make that change and that shift, and to allow that peace, to allow that calm, and to make those decisions. And that's always that's what this work is about for me. I want everyone to feel that. I want everybody to know that that's all it is. And it's a lot simpler than we make it. It's a simple decision. It's
so simple, isn't it?
Yeah. But we make it difficult. Right? It's just one decision. So I'd love for you guys, I know we only have about 5 minutes, and any kind of wisdom that you could share in the last couple of minutes, because I'd love to hear from you both again, really. Gretchen, what anything on your heart to share that you're hearing that
One thing I was thinking when you were talking, one of the easiest things that we can do, well, seemingly easy, is to just breathe. And so a very simple thing for people to do is just place their left hand on their chest and their right hand on their upper belly, above the belly button, and just breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, and try to take that breath all the way down to that bottom hand. And what that will do is, it actually is a scientific, it stimulates the vagus nerve, which is attached to the base of the brain. It comes down the neck into the heart and sends fingers into all the organs. So it will relax and activate that energy that they need, because we are imbalance the central nervous system, because when we breathe shallowly, like almost all people do, that keeps us in a state of fight or flight. And that causes physical illness. It causes us to react instead of, responding. So just simply by trying to take that breath down lower, that alone can change your physical health and and even your mental health. So if I could leave with you with just one little simple technique, that would be it.
Great. Thank you. Yes, that's great. And David, anything that you are feeling to share?
Sure. Absolutely. I feel like for me, it's one of the most important things that I tell people whenever I'm working with them is that a lot of times we live our lives according to somebody else. If it's our parents, if it's our kids, if it's our pastor, a teacher, or some other influence, our wife or husbands, anybody, like there's so many other influences that are coming in telling you how to be. And the most important thing is to really go inside and remember who you are. And some encouragement is just that is the best thing that you can do for your wife, teacher, other, kids, parents, whatever. The best thing that you can do for them is to be so authentically yourself. And whatever relationship you're wanting to have or wanting to improve, or however you're wanting if you're wanting somebody to think of you in a certain way, the best way that they're going to think of you is if you're in that authenticity. And if you're wanting to create the world or your life you wanted to make some massive shift, just don't think in terms of how things have been, because that has nothing to do with how things can be or will be in the future. I was homeless, living on the streets of Compton.
Wow.
And within months, my life looked completely different. I had family, I had friends, I had, had everything a lot of the things that I wanted. I'm still creating a lot of it myself, but there's a lot of things that were coming in, and it all came from, just like you were talking about, just these simple shifts. It's just these little decisions that you have to make, and then just really being in your authenticity, and then just keep on going for it.
I lost you a little bit.
That's beautiful.
Okay, thank you so much. You guys are such a blessing. Thank you so much. And I feel like we didn't have enough time.
Just getting started.
We're just getting started. So, wow. And then you joining us from Tulum. My niece actually went there, I think last year, and she absolutely loved it. Yeah. And she likes to travel the world, Costa Rica, and do the different things. And she's adventured way more than me. I wish I were her. I was going, I want to be a gypsy like her. So it's great. So yeah, I mean, and yeah,
isn't that exciting that technology can connect us to somebody in the jungle?
Yes, yes.
There's
in the jungle. I'm not sure I want to be in the jungle, but it's okay.
It's fine.
I want to be totally in the jungle.
Come
on. Yes, but that is awesome. So, I look forward to hopefully speaking to you guys again. And I did put your websites up on the chat. And if you're joining us in the replay, put #replay, and please check out their websites. And Gretchen, I'm going to check out your yoga class. So I need to.
Thank you.
So I love that. So thank you, David, for taking time out of your jungle experience.
And so much.
And I can't wait to hear. I want to hear maybe the next time on what you're doing down there, because we kind of didn't even touch on that much. But when you have that all formulated, I would love to hear about that too. And Gretchen, anything that you have coming up, reach out. So thank you guys so much for being on my show. I really appreciate it. And I hope that the audience has got, a couple tools now in their toolbox that they can use going forward just to get that calm and be their authentic selves, like you were talking about. Thank you guys, and take care and have a beautiful week and many blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.